Taking the time out to attend this. I think I'll start off. We've got a couple, I'll acknowledge a couple people in the audience. Councilperson Rita Donnelly is here tonight. I know Councilperson Pete Gretchen's out in the hallway.
No,
he's not. Where's he at?
Oh, there he is.
I got to stand up.
Yeah. Well, that was where I last saw you. As far as some other department heads or city employees are not, I know we've got some other people from the police department that are here. Am I missing anybody from city, representing the city and other departments? Looks like.
I can tell you that the mayor and Councilman Moore and Councilman Raddick, all three were at a conference in Des Moines today, so they're probably coming back.
Okay.
No, but then they're also
Oh, the Northwest Iowa City.
All right. Well, I appreciate you guys being here, and I appreciate everybody else coming. This is part of our community policing outreach, and it's a very important part of it where we get to sit down with you. We'll update you on what we're doing at the police department, and then we'll spend some time with you at your tables and listen to some of your issues and see if we can't solve some of the problems that we have in our neighborhood. But, thank you very much, and I recognize a lot of you that are here that you've been here before, so you know the routine. So we'll start. Kevin Heineman, Lieutenant Kevin Heineman, is now in charge of our community policing efforts. He took over for Rex Mueller. He's doing a very good job. We'll give you some stats tonight. We'll talk about other things, but I think there's a very important part here that I want to present to the public, and it's part of the process as you go into adopt body cameras for law enforcement or your police department. It's very important that the public know what we're going to do and some of the pros and cons that are going to arise out of the fact that we have body cameras. Obviously, everybody can think of all the good things about it, but there are some other things there that are questionable. It's not the panacea, the tell-all that some people are led to believe when we wear body cameras. There's a lot of things can happen with that body camera on our person. So we'll have that discussion. Mike Simone back here. We have tested a few body cameras. At some point in time, there might be a question that will pop up. He's here to be able to answer that. He got to test it for the police department along with him and Bert Schumacher tested it. We liked what we saw, but there's so many cameras out there that picking and choosing is going to be pretty tough in the expense that we're going to get from going to the body cameras. So I think it's important that the public know what we're getting into. So, having said that, I'll turn it over to Kevin Heineman, and we'll get started. Thank you.
Okay, on the tables, there's two pieces of paper there. One is an agenda that you can write notes on. The yellow piece of paper is a questionnaire. You guys will have any thoughts about the body cameras after the presentation, you can put your information on there. And then down below, any community concerns that you have. I know you'll discuss a little bit at the tables, but you can put them on these sheets. We'll pick them up, and I'll make sure that an officer or sergeant gets back in touch with you and put your name and information at the top so that we can make contact with you concerning whatever issues that you have. The first speaker tonight will be Rick Arnold. He'll talk a little bit just about the neighborhood network and some of the folks that are in charge of some of the coalitions around town.
On each of the tables, there should be some blue flyers on Neighborhood Network. And so if you need more of those, I've got a few more of those back there. And part of what's on there is our different neighborhood groups that are active with us throughout the city. Neighborhood Network started over 20 years ago, and the city was doing their master plan, and they decided there was a one-year task force, some of the problems that were going on with the city, and they decided that people felt alienated and disconnected from city government, from their services, from police departments, and that they needed to change that and be more proactive about that. And so one of the ideas that came out of that was to have neighborhood groups that were more active with their city services, especially the police department. And one of the people in that group was from Chicago. Her name was Virginia Nivens, and she recruited a few of us to start neighborhood network, and then to start individual neighborhood groups. And there's some that are here in this room that were already ongoing at that point, so they were recruited to be a part of that group. And so that started the process back then, and it really started building the relationship between the neighborhood groups and our city staff, especially our police department as we have here today. So that was kind of a nice process that started. Along came a program through the federal government called the CAS program. In fact, in Sioux City, the leader of that program is now our police chief, Doug, and he started that, and they had cops assigned to different neighborhoods. They were on bicycles, and they picked the high crime neighborhoods, and they went door to door and started building that relationship with our neighbors and with the police department and finding out what crime was going on in the city, because they don't know. If they don't live in the neighborhood, they don't often know some of the crime that's going on, and so it started building that relationship to provide that information, and then they were very proactively working on solving those crimes. So unfortunately, that was just a grant for a few years, and we lost that money to do that, but what it did change is the philosophy in the police department. And that was on purpose, and the philosophy was to become more involved with our city and our neighborhood groups to find out about crime and proactively solve those problem areas so they would get less calls for service. And so even though we lost that funding and that department, the whole mentality of the police department started changing to be more proactive and to build the relationships that we now have successful relationships with our police department today in helping solve our crimes in the city. Now, we can't afford a cop on every corner. Our city councilmen back here, they will attest to that. We don't want to raise taxes, but what we can do is keep our tax dollars down, is be more proactive in letting them know what issues we have in our neighborhoods and how they can help solve it, because they don't have these meetings just for fun. They do these so that they can solve those problems and bring our crime rate down without raising our taxes. So if we are active today and will give a frank, honest input about what problems we have, they will proactively work to make that happen. And it starts with their chief. I mean, it comes on down. There's lots of officers here throughout our city on our staff that want to solve these problems, but they want to hear from us. So be frank and honest when you're filling out those sheets. We want to have that. And you know, in all my lifetime of living here, of 30-some years that I've lived in this city, this is the best relationship we've ever had with our city staff and our police department. And we've got a lot of neighborhood groups out there that help make that happen. In addition to the police are receptive. They want to work with us. They want to solve our problems. And we encourage that. So on the back of that is some of the neighborhood groups that are active groups that are affiliated with us Neighborhood Network. Our meeting is the second Thursday of the month at the police station at 6 o'clock. That's on there. But there's some people that are leaders from some of those neighborhood groups and from our board of Neighborhood Network. So we'll start with the Neighborhood Network board. Who's active Neighborhood Network board people? We got Maria, we got Pete, we got Tiffany, we got John back there. Those are all regular Neighborhood Network boards. But then we have the individual neighborhood groups, and a lot of those are throughout our city. And you can belong to whatever group you want to belong to. If you want to join a group, they're all looking for more people to become active and involved with them, and you don't have to live in that neighborhood to help work to solve issues in our city. So I'm going to have those people raise their hands so that if you want to go sit at that table because you want to help work on an active problem in that neighborhood, then come and sit at the table, and they're more than happy to welcome you there. So I've got their meeting times and so forth on the back, but we'll start Riverside is Pete. He's the captain of the Riverside, leader there. We've got Tiffany back there. She covers West Side Coalition. That's West Side area right there. We do have a Crescent Park area, and they changed their meeting date, and on this program, it should be High B. They're meeting actually tonight at 7 o'clock at High B. That's the Crescent Park group, and their contact information is on there. They were going to present this on the screen, scrolling throughout the evening, so it will be correct on there. It's just that these were printed, I don't know, 2 months ago, and they've changed their meeting location. It's the High V out there. And so their meeting tonight can't be here. Jackie from Greenville, she is going to be here, but can't get here until 8 o'clock, so she's going to be here. We have Rose Hill right over here. So Corey's, and so they're also on there. The Rose Hill meeting. That used to be called the Near North Side. They just went up a little farther north. And so there, we've got Near West Side Coalition. So Karen over here, she regularly attends that. There's also a group that meets at St. Luke's on the North Side that happens monthly also. So anyway, you can go to whatever group you want to be involved with. If you want to get a group started in your neighborhood, we would really like that, encourage that, and help support you to become an active group in whatever neighborhood you live in. There's no rules. You can do what you want, you think will help solve your issues. And then, if you are an active group and a regular group, the police will assign a liaison to come to your meetings. So every month you can report problems that are happening in your neighborhood, and they will actively work on those problems. So it really works, folks, and so we definitely encourage you to get involved. And then today, just be honest and frank. Whatever your issues are, put them down there, and they're going to listen to these. All get reported back, and they will proactively work on solving that. Now, they can't solve everything overnight, but they're here to listen. That's what they're here for, and they want your input, so don't be shy about writing things down that are going on in their city. So, any questions out there?
I don't see Morningside on here.
No. Now, Morningside has always been a struggle getting them organized because they don't think they have crime out there. And that has been a problem getting active Morningside groups. Now, we have, occasionally we'll have people that will want to get something going, and we encourage that. We've got a couple of churches that are kind of trying to get more organized. They had our National Night Out event that we have every year in August, and so they're trying to get something going. So if you are in Morningside, get with me, and we would really, really like to have Morningside groups out there. And that's been a struggle for many, many years to get that going. And so typically our groups that are the more active are the ones that have more crime issues, and that gives them motivation, safety-wise, to get involved. And we've always struggled with Morningside. We've always wanted Morningside groups, and we've got our Greenville Pact group out there, but we've struggled with Morningside. So if you guys would be interested, we would really like that. And it doesn't have to be you guys as leaders, but if you know somebody that would be leaders, we can pool together a few different parties and try to get something going.
I think everybody that I know out in Morningside, we all carry guns. So we may be scaring all the trouble away.
That could be, if they're going to the other location or something like that. But if you do know of anybody that would be interested, maybe, and there's no prerequisites as to what activities you do, it just could be meeting monthly to discuss issues, whatever, we would really like for that to be the case and encourage backing that up. So any more questions before we move on to the next lady speaker? So these are on your table. If you want more of these, let me know. We've got more of those. Yes, we have a question over here. Oh, yeah.
If you want to put a group together, how often do they have to meet? Is there any responsibility on that?
It's up to you. Like Greenville meets every other month, so they do every other month. So it's a little easier if you meet monthly, but maybe you don't have needs or issues, and it's hard to get people together. And so it's up to you. You can do your own thing, and but you have to meet regularly to get a police liaison, because they want to make sure that that they're assigning officers time, because they're taking somebody off the streets to come and be at the meeting, so they want to be valuable use of their time, and so they want to have regular meetings. But yeah, every other month is fine. Yeah, and that you may start out that way, it'll be easier to build, and then as you get more active and you get more people, then you can go there every month if that works and you have enough people. So there's no rules and limitations as to where you can be or how often you want to meet or what you want to do in activities. So that's all up to you and what you think your neighborhood needs. But we're here to support you. The Neighborhood Network, we're the kind of the master board, and we're here to support you. We get together and a different neighborhood may have had that issue, and they know how to solve it, and so they can relay that on to you and help you. So great minds getting together can make great things happen. So, but yeah, think about it, because we really like to encourage more people to get involved and have more neighborhood groups. Any other questions? And we really like our relationship with the police department. They support us a lot. We also have a quarterly meeting, so we meet with city manager and staff's department heads. So quarterly, and so if we have other issues, tonight we're focusing more on crime than other things, but we may have snowplow issues or light issues, or we may have other issues, junk yards or things like that we can deal with. Through our quarterly meeting, then we can meet with the city heads and say, hey, can you deal with these other issues out there? And they are proactive about that. So we have an awesome relationship with our city staff now, and it's been years of hard work by a lot of people in this room that have had neighborhood groups and helped us and our board and so on and so forth. So sorry to take up so much time.
No, it's fine.
No other questions? Okay, right a lot tonight. We want lots of comments, so thank you.
Up next, we will have Rita Donnelly. She will talk about volunteers and police service. You want this? Or you want me to?
I do. No. I need that. I want to welcome everybody here tonight as well. I grew up in Sioux City, was born and raised here. If I was still living in the house I grew up in, it would be over in the Rose Hill district, so right in the middle of town. So I want I'm proud to be affiliated with the police department. We have a number of volunteers here tonight that are registered volunteers, but I also want to thank the Neighborhood Network and all of the citizens that are not official volunteers, but you guys are volunteering out in the neighborhood and you're having meetings on your own to try and keep Sioux City a great place to live. So I want to thank you as well. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our volunteer program. These are just some of the faces of the people that have been involved with our volunteer program. Also our internship program that we have through the police department. Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, thank you. If anybody snores, you better not. No snoring now that the lights are on. I know we have some night officers here, so that might be tough, but I'll make it quick and brief here. Some of our folks that are volunteers are regulars out on the bike trails. And I want to open this up in case some of you are people that use the bike trails and you want to help us provide a friendly, visible presence out on the trail. This is Julie and Ron. They have their own bikes they head out, but we also have some mountain bikes that are available at different fire stations. So if you wanted to take a bike out or if you wanted to use one of your own, we have different locations that these bikes are located so that folks can be out on the trail and kind of keep their eyes and ears out there. We have volunteers that walk quite a bit and report graffiti, which is really nice, and just to kind of provide a friendly, visible presence. This is also Drag Ride that we helped out with last summer. Our officers were really involved with a lot of the planning behind the scenes for Drag Ride to go off, as well as it did last summer. Again, we have volunteers that helped out with that. There were 10 different intersections along Hamilton, and the Sunday morning when everybody headed out of town, we had volunteers that stopped cars so that the bicyclists could go by. I thought this picture was kind of funny because somebody didn't get the memo that you're supposed to be heading north on Hamilton to head out. So I thought, you're going the wrong way, buddy. We also have our youth academy that we're fortunate enough to offer every summer. A number of you folks have been through our adult citizen academy, but now we offer, and we have for at least 10 years, a youth academy for students that are 14 to 18 years old. This is Tanner Tralia. He graduated from West High last year, and he helped me just announce last week that we're offering the youth academy again this summer. The students have a great time. The officers do an amazing job with the students, show them what it's like to do traffic stops. The K-9 unit, SWAT team, every department is represented, or every bureau is represented, and they really work well with these students, and we're really, really happy to offer this. Tanner's in police science at Western Iowa Tech, so it also kind of gives students a chance to see if law enforcement might be something they're interested in, and it gives a good chance to build relationships with the officers. So I want to shout out to the officers, too, to thank you for all your help throughout the years to help with the Youth Academy. Chief Young started it a few years back, and it's still going strong. These are two ladies. I probably have talked about them before. I call them Cagney and Lacey. They go out in the evening for us and write tickets for handicap parking patrol. We also have Tiffany just recently is going through our training to help out with our handicap parking patrol. Our volunteers are very passionate about this. They're not out there to write as many tickets as possible, but they're out there to make sure that those spaces are open for people who need them. Our volunteers don't approach any occupied vehicles. They only write tickets to people that don't have a placard issued or hanging. They also can write tickets for people who are parked in fire lanes as long as there's an upright sign. So our volunteers help out a lot behind the scenes. Project Lifesaver is a program that's been around since about 2007 in Sioux City and Woodbury County. Chief Young helped us get $10,000 to get that program started in our area. It's a tracking device. It's actually a little radio transmitter that emits a signal every second so that we can find a loved one that gets lost and can't find their way back home. We have 57 people on the program now in Sioux City and Woodbury County, and 51 of them are children or young adults with an intellectual disability. This little boy lives out in Morningside. He has autism and could not tell you where he lives or how to get there. So Project Lifesaver helps us find these individuals when they take off, or they might wander down the street, as some of our older folks do, and not be able to find their way back home. So we're really grateful for that program. I also want to acknowledge United Way's group called Women United. Last year, they gave us enough money to add 10 new children to the program, which is nice because families many times have tight budgets, and this doesn't take away from their budget, but keeps their child safe. And then just recently, we're getting $5,200 to add 12 more kids over the next year, which is really, really nice to have. Probably some of you have seen Mike Boggs on TV recently or in the newspaper. He's a 59-year-old gentleman with dementia. His wife is a third-grade teacher at Blessed Sacrament. They have a son who quit college to come home and stay with Mike because he can't work anymore. He's now on Project Lifesaver because he can't drive, he can't work, and he has a tendency to think about taking a walk and may not be able to get back home. So this program really helps a lot of people. I did bring brochures that I'll leave in the back. If any of you might know a neighbor or a loved one that might benefit from Project Lifesaver, we do our best to get funding so that the families don't have to pay for it. So I'll leave some brochures for anybody that might know of a family that might benefit from it. And we have volunteers that go out and help change batteries and help with the program as well. Speaking of that, there's Bill Wineland, one of our volunteers, helping change batteries in Little Austin. Those are some of the faces of some of our people that are on our program, all over the life and all over the city. And I want to wrap it up, no pun intended, with our volunteer presents for the Shoppers Cops. As you can see, there's a variety of things our volunteers do to support the officers. This is a neat event that is offered every December with the 2 Walmart. Our officers go out, shop with these kids, and then our volunteers help wrap the presents. And it's really nice to have a great partnership with the 2 Walmart. The officers do a great job with these kids, and the volunteers just help wrap the presents along the way. So with that, I will leave a couple brochures. I'll also leave some Youth Academy applications if you know of anybody that might want to take it this summer. They have to be 14 to 18 years old, and also some volunteer brochures. So does anybody have any questions or any comments they want to make? I'd be happy to answer them.
Rita, you could be a trailblazer who walk, right? You don't
Yes.
have to be in the class.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
You're all right then.
Yes, thank you. You can walk or right. Thank you guys. Keep up the great work.
So next we have Divis, our TV crime analyst, and she'll talk a little bit about the crime stats from last year.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Divis. I'm our crime analyst. We have a unit of 2 people, myself and another analyst. I was fortunate to be a police officer for our department for 13 years, left for a couple years, and then came back about 5 years ago, and I'm our crime analyst. So we're pretty excited to be back. We always have calls on crime statistics. People call and say, hey, what's our crime rate? So I kind of wanted to mix it up just a little bit this time. I know everybody's like, statistics. But I did this last year where this kind of showed what officers are actually doing and what's going on in our city. Just looking at our dispatch calls for service. So what that is burglaries, thefts, when people are calling and asking for officers to come out. 49,360 calls for service. Then just looking at what officers are doing on their own. They're going out and doing traffic stops, building checks. Just checking on suspicious people that they see. 33,000, 33,002. When you break that down, just kind of to let you know what our officers are doing, that's 226 calls a day, 75 calls per shift. So just think, on an average, 9 or 10 officers out on the street. That's a lot of calls that they're responding to. And then in between that, they're actually fitting in their own self-initiated activities, traffic stops, suspicious people. So I know I'm bragging a little bit, but just to let the community know what's going on, and also officers, I don't think they realize exactly how much is actually going on in our community and how much they're doing. So just bragging a little bit. This is nothing to anybody who can't see it, but it just shows our crime trends for the last 5 years, 2011 until 2015. And what it says on the left-hand side, and I'll kind of break it down just a little bit for you, but on the left-hand side is our crimes against persons or violent crimes. As you can see, you can hardly see any of the graph, which is a good thing. And it's pretty steady across the board as far as, and violent crimes are things that we report to the FBI. Homicide, murder, forcible rape, robbery, pay rape, that's our violent crimes. And then on the other side, the graph is quite a bit larger and taller, as you can see, and those are our property crimes. And statistically and historically, we have more violent crimes in the city as compared to violent crimes. That's a good thing. Just looking here, how do we compare? What are the numbers? I have to go back to 2014 because unfortunately the FBI is a little bit behind on giving their stats to us. So I wanted to compare apples to apples and just show kind of what our community looks like. So looking at violent crimes from 2014, homicides nationally, there's 4.5 murders per 100,000 people. So we have 82,600-ish people in Sioux City. So I have to do some math and figure out how do we compare. So we compared, we had 2, so that's pretty average in Sioux City, 2 homicides. So figuring that out to compare it to 100,000 people, that's 2.4 homicides per 100,000 people. So we're about 50% less than what our national average is, just to kind of show you Sioux City is a very safe community. And then just looking at robberies, kind of the same thing. Nationally, we have 102 per 100,000 people, and then comparing that Sioux City's rate, about 58 per 100,000, which breaks it down to still about 50% of what we're seeing nationally. So we're below the rate is on violent crimes. So that's pretty exciting. No one wants to do cartwheels or anything? Looking at 2014 property crimes, we're higher, but looking at that nationally, stolen vehicles, 216 per 100,000. Statistically, math-wise, 245 per 100,000 is what Sioux City figures out to be. Thefts, 1837 per 100,000. Sioux City is 3,019 per 100,000. But the one thing that we've talked about over and over again, and I've been to crime analysis conferences and talked to other agencies, the one thing that we do a little bit differently as an agency, and the chief has sent it down the ranks, that if someone calls to make a report, we take it. So even if there's no suspect, you don't know who did it, or it was something very minimal that was taken, for instance, in a theft, we still will come out and take that report. Or we'll take it over a phone, or like a records tech will take it. So that drives our crime statistics up quite a bit as far as on property crimes. You talk to other agencies, and they won't even come out if you don't have a suspect. They won't take the report. So that's one thing as far as like community team policing that we see in our department is that no matter what it is, if you want to talk to an officer, someone's going to come out and talk to you. Or if you don't want an officer to come out, you can make a report over the phone. So does it drive our stats up? Yes, but it also makes our community happy. We're doing what we need to do. Customer service is good. So I like to see these numbers because on the side of crimes against persons, you can't hide homicides. I mean, we know those numbers are pretty true. People don't call for violent crimes usually, so those numbers are pretty true to compare. But as far as property crimes, it's difficult to compare. But statistically looking, we're still doing pretty good. I'd rather have a bunch of property crimes than violent crimes. The one thing that I did want to talk about is I was trying to mix it up a little bit, just to keep it interesting. See if I grab that thin blue line. Anybody who's familiar with law enforcement knows where that is. Sioux City in the last 3 years has seen something that we haven't seen. April 29, 2013, we had an officer shot. Actually, Kevin's here. Tomorrow is the 3-year anniversary of him being shot.
Glad you're here together.
October 3rd, 2014, we had our second officer shot. That was Officer Joe Lone. And then February 6th of 2016, the most recent, Ryan Moritz was shot. We are so lucky that we haven't had any fatalities. We haven't had anyone lose their life. But all 3 officers that were shot were life-threatening injuries, or could have been. We just have been lucky not to have an officer actually killed in line of duty. So we're thankful for that. I've had officers come in and ask me, hey, can you explain what's going on? Why are we having officers shot? I've had citizens call and ask the same thing. I can't explain it. There's no explanation. We can talk about it. We can speculate why. And it's consistent, kind of what we're seeing across the country as far as just violence against officers in general has increased a bit, but not dramatically when you look at the national statistics compared to what we're seeing. Locally, I mean, we've had 3 officers shot in the last 3 years. Prior to that, it was 1982, so 31 years since we've had any officer shot in the line of duty. I can't explain, why. All I can say is very thankful that we have our officers with us. And I did want to talk about the thin blue line for just a brief moment. Anybody know what it is as far as besides police officers? What that thin blue line is? That's actually officers, law enforcement. That's our protection. That's what protects us. Above it, our community. Me, all of us in the community, the officers who they protect. And then below are the criminals out there who are preying on victims, causing homicides, murders, theft. And it's up to the officers, our thin blue line, to protect us. And so we're thankful for that. And I would say that everyone here, I mean, this is a huge group. I had to bring in a few more chairs just to have enough people, enough places for officers and community members to sit. So I would say that speaks a huge testament to the community support. And I think I speak for the officers when I say they appreciate the support and the interest in our community. And this is what it's all about, is actually bringing everybody together so that we can talk about the problems and solve those things and do that together to make our community safer. So on that note, I would just like to share one of my favorite videos. Anybody heard of Paul Harvey? One of my favorite videos is The Policeman. And it's a video, or it's actually a radio broadcast. It's on YouTube. I'm going to show you a video. But it's from 1970, and it's pretty progressive. And Paul Harvey, as you know, was pretty progressive in his thoughts and what he talked about, and the rest of the story, as he always said, one of my favorite shows. But a little known fact about him is that he actually was the son of a police officer who was killed off duty while hunting by 3 suspects. And he lost his father at the age of 2, which I didn't understand exactly why he was so progressive and why he was so interested in law enforcement. He does quite a few speeches and broadcasts about law enforcement. But that in and of itself explains it. So with that, I'm going to play that. And if anybody has any questions after the meeting is done, I'm more than glad to answer any crime statistics and questions that you might have. Any other information that you would like to have. I also have cards with me. I can give you the community meetings that you have out in your areas. All the stats come from our unit. So we can answer any questions you might have with those. So any questions before I play the video? With that.
Policeman. A policeman is a composite of what all men are, I guess, a mingling of saint and sinner, dust and deity. What that really means is that
the presentation will hopefully give you a little bit of information about some of the issues that you folks are probably going to have to deal with legislators, but we're going to have to deal with in the courts.
You guys seem really interested about it right there. All right, so I just want to talk briefly, as the lieutenant said, about body cameras. Talk a little bit about the benefits, some of the challenges and concerns we have with implementing body cameras, the limitations of them, and policy issues that we face trying to implement a body camera program. And I got an example of one of the body cameras that are out there. They're rather sizable, probably about the size of an old school pager, if you guys remember those back in the day. So something about the size of a deck of cards is about on average what most of them look like. And they make smaller ones, but unfortunately the larger ones are the more rugged ones. And we're kind of a rough and tumble group out in the rain and the snow and like to tackle people and get dirty and everything else, so the camera's got to hold up too. Some of the benefits: improve the public trust, accountability. We're a fairly open department, and I think we're very forthcoming about a lot of the things that we do. However, we've had camera footage come out where we've had to employ force to effect an arrest, and unfortunately force isn't always pretty, but when people see that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, that we're not being excessive, and we're doing exactly what we say we've done, then that improves the trust with them. Training. We can take that footage and show the officers, this is how we can handle a situation, this is what we did poorly, we can do better. So we can use that footage and go back and implement that in a training program and try to improve how we handle situations. Real-time evidence gathering. I can't misquote you if it's on camera. You know, and the camera catches it all, the microphone will pick it up, so it's nice to have that. I don't got to memorize every little thing that's going on at that point if I can trust that the camera's going to pick up some of that, what's being said and what's being done. Reduction in possible lawsuits and civil defense of officers and agencies. Believe it or not, people aren't always happy when we have to use force to effect an arrest, and sometimes people exaggerate the force that we employ. And so, you know, the city's got deep pockets in some people's views, and so they're going to file lawsuits to try to get some of that money. The body cameras are shown to be effective in reducing those lawsuits for the city and the liability against the officer, and help defend those officers in those situations to show that we weren't inappropriate or we did what we said we did. Increased professionalism. If I know I'm being recorded, the likelihood of me dropping an F-bomb, knowing that it's going to be recorded, kind of goes down, right? So officers do act a little more professional when they're on camera. Again, an impartial eyewitness. The camera doesn't take sides. It doesn't care who says it, it'll pick it up. It doesn't care who does it, it'll pick it up. So it's impartial. I'm going to show you a quick video of Officer Simone doing what's known as the horizontal gaze of stagnance test on the subject. So he's trying to investigate a possible operating while intoxicated or drunk driver. And what this test is just basically, we're testing someone's eyes. We're looking for little twitches in the eyes. And I'm going to show you this video and see if you can pick up when you see the eyes kind of twitching or bouncing. And this is something that we could show in court to prove an OWI case or a drunk driver's case.
Okay. I just want to look at your eyes, okay? Look at my hands. Okay. Can you see the tip of my finger? Oh, okay. Follow it with just your eyes. Don't move your head, okay? Can you see my finger on here? Yes, I do. Okay. Follow it. Move your eyes with my finger, not your head. No, stay with it. You see my finger? Okay.
Okay. So that's great evidence, because you can see some of the clues that we're looking for. It may be hard to see in the back of the room, but if you get a little closer, you can see at times his eyes are twitching, you know, quite a bit. And statistically, this is one of the best tests that we do on the side of the road to prove impairment. So say we get the guy back, he doesn't want to give us a sample of his breath, urine, or blood, or anything like that. We can go into court and show that and say, hey, statistically, the probability of him being intoxicated at a certain level is such and such. We've got this big brain guy down in Des Moines that comes up and testifies to all that, and he can look at that and give you a good idea what his blood alcohol content was at that time, just off that little video. But the other thing you saw in that video is Officer Simone's arm gets in front of that camera sometimes, right? And that brings us to the other part, some of the challenges and concerns about implementing cameras and you know, their limitations and problems that we come into. Cost. Cost is huge, all right? I've seen some of these cameras start out as low as $50, and some go up to almost $1,000, if not a little bit more. And again, we have to buy rugged cameras that will last 12, 16 hours, and so that's not cheap. And then on top of it, if we want good quality video, again, we got to buy a higher end camera. You know, you look at what the news stations bring. You know, they're not bringing that old school little camcorder. They're bringing in $1,500, $2,000, $2,400 cameras because they want that good, high-quality video. If we want the same thing, it costs a lot of money. And then on top of the training and everything else that we got to use to implement that. Storage space. If you're not real tech savvy, the best way I can describe it is a bookcase. You know, if you buy a bookcase and you're sticking a book up there, if everything you do, you're jotting down in a journal or whatnot, you know, and you stick it up on that bookcase, that eventually that bookcase is going to fill up with all that information, right? And the cameras that we need to get to have that high quality video, we're not going to be sticking up a small notebook or a pamphlet. We're going to be sticking up novels. And novels take up a lot of space and fill that space up rather quickly. And we have to keep a lot of that evidence for a long time. So if I go and investigate someone for an assault or a murder, that's something we may have to keep, you know, forever, especially in a homicide investigation. So, you know, some of that we have to keep for a long time, and so storage space, you know, these videos will take up a lot of storage space, and storage space costs a lot of money. Point of view. Some of these cameras don't always have the widest angles. You know, you might, if I had a camera on me right now, I might be only picking up this little bit. So if something's going on over here, the camera's not picking it up, right? Public privacy issues, especially when we enter someone's home and we're interacting with victims and bystanders. An example of this is, there's a 14-year-old severely autistic child that we deal with. Now I say child loosely because he's already 6 foot, 250 pounds, and he acts out violently. And so ideally it'd be nice to have that camera because sometimes we have to restrain him because he likes to grab onto people, pull their hair and everything else. But the problem is he's naked half the time we come to his residence. And there's a huge privacy concern with filming this naked child, you know, to protect ourselves and to protect him. So there's a lot of issues that we got to deal with, and we see it all. We see people at their best, and we see people at their worst. You know, and I can tell you story upon story that you wouldn't want videoed. Or think about if you were out here, you know, you were having a medical emergency, and we had to do CPR, and you know, we had to take your clothes off to expose everything, make sure we're treating you. You know, maybe you're in a severe car accident, make sure we're treating all the injuries. Do you really want that recorded? Limitations of the cameras. Cameras don't always follow the eyes of the officers or what the officer sees. I've seen plenty of camera footage where all they keep is back in the officer's hand, or they're facing the wrong way and the action's over here. So the officer sees. Now some officers or some departments, they've got the cameras that'll clip onto their collar or some eyeglasses, so you'll see a little more of what they're seeing. But again, I got a piece of equipment now hanging off here, there, and everything else. So there's some limitations in that. Some danger cues can't be recorded. All right, maybe there's little nuances that the camera's not going to pick up. If any of you have been in a fight or a confrontation with someone, there's little body language cues that you're picking up that the camera's not necessarily going to pick up, or just that feeling. You know, if someone's getting real close to you and they're invading your personal space, you know, the camera might not pick up those little nuances. Sometimes the cameras see better in low light than you do. In the next video I'm going to show here in a minute, the camera's going to see a lot better, I think, than Officer Simone did in the situation. The subject's backlit, it's dark, you know, so the lights are in Officer Simone's hands and it's dark out, but the camera's picking up great video. And you're going to see a little bit of those limitations. And some of those cameras have, you know, night vision. And so you might see kind of a gray or greenish picture, whereas the officer sees dark. So the camera might see better in low light than the officer does. If you go back and look at that, you think, well, why couldn't he see that, you know, this guy was doing this or that and not having a gun or whatever. Again, the officer's body may block the view of the camera. Camera only records in 2D. So you're seeing a nice flat picture, and you might not get a full feel of how far away somebody actually was or wasn't. You know, I've seen plenty of footage where it seems like someone's, you know, miles away from the camera, but in actuality they're just a few feet away. Or vice versa, or the relationship of her to Officer McCormick and myself might be lost in some of the cameras, just the way they shoot that footage. So it's real hard to judge distance sometimes in those cameras. One camera might be enough. If my camera's only picking up this little bit of action over here, and there's plenty of other stuff going on over here, we may need more cameras, right? Cameras encourage second guessing. If you watch football or any kind of sport, you know, you see the play happen, But then they go back and they rewind and they're showing us, I think he's touching the base before he gets tagged out. You know, and I was just watching the game the other night, and they spent 15 minutes trying to, you know, replaying the call that the umpire made, or whatever, on a guy that's sliding to second base. Well, it happens to us too. Well, why didn't you ninja kick him sooner, or, you know, something else? So it encourages second guessing. The camera can't ever replace the thorough investigation. You know, we picked up security camera footage, and it looks one way, but once we start investigating, it's a whole other story. So the camera's only getting a little slice of the pie. You're not getting all of the whole story. All right, so this is a video of an example of the limitations of the camera. Again, the subject that Officer Simone's dealing with is backlit. So Officer Simone's lights are behind him, in Officer Simone's eyes. It's dark out. The camera doesn't pick up what the subject's doing with his hands. He's going to be doing something with his hands that Officer Simone reacts to. All right, but there's still a lot of good evidence on here, but it shows a good example of the limitations. Now, before I play the video, I do want to say that there's some explicit language in the video. I've redacted the limitations. That camera's picking up a little bit better than Officer Simone can probably see. The lights are in his eye, and all of a sudden he sees something shining in this guy's eye, or in his hand. And you don't know if it's a knife or gun. If I played it a little bit longer, you'd actually hear the stress coming in Officer Simone's voice, and a little bit of relief knowing that's her lighter. And, you know, he talks about, I thought it was a knife. I thought this guy was pulling a knife out. And, you know, I guess if he would have had to employ force at that point, that guy wouldn't have put it down, and he wouldn't have employed force. You know, this camera would have backed him up, I think, in a little bit, and showing that he was legitimately in fear that this guy had a weapon. But the camera wouldn't have picked it up necessarily, so would have led to some of that second guessing. So that just gives you a brief overview of some of the limitations and issues that we face with that. Other concerns that we have is policy issues. When do we record? You know, when and who do we record? When do we turn it on? Who sees the video and when? Because is it part of public information? And Seattle PD had this issue where they started implementing cameras because of all the issues that they were having and complaints that they were having. So they started implementing body cameras, and then there was someone that likes to put camera footage on the internet. They dropped a FOIA request, a Freedom of Information Act request on him. And so he got all their video camera, but he had to go in and help redact a lot of the videos that they were able to release. And what's nice about it, though, is what he ultimately said is, it's incredibly boring how much of this stuff you guys actually do. You know, just it's going and talking to people, and it wasn't any of those gotcha moments I think he was hoping for, a lot of that action. Evidence management. If I got to store stuff, you know, if I got to store terabytes upon terabytes of evidence for a long period of time, you know, how do I do that? Who manages that? You know, how long do we manage that? Who's responsible for purging all that information? You know, we've got a guy that his full-time job is just managing the physical evidence that we have. In our basement property room is 3/4 of our, you know, of our basement. It's just full of property, and they got property all the way back from 1954 from the Donna Sue Davis case. So if we're holding on to stuff that long, what about all these videos? We're talking about terabytes of stuff. Activation and deactivation rules. When am I supposed to activate it? When should I activate it? You know, if I activate it too soon, then am I going to be questioned about why I activated too soon, and what am I trying to cover up, that kind of stuff. Interviews and interrogations. Who gets recorded, who doesn't get recorded. And then officers' rights, subjects' rights, agencies' needs, community demands. You know, if you believe it or not, officers, we do have rights too when, you know, we interact with people and get accused of wrongdoing or whatnot. We have rights as well. So, you know, what about our rights? What about suspects' rights in some of these videos and stuff like that? If we're accused of crimes and, you know, people want this information released. So there's a lot of considerations with the policies. But ending with a quote from Chief Ron Miller, formerly of Topeka, Kansas, you know, he felt that everyone's on their best behavior when cameras are running, the officers, the public, and everyone. And we've seen that, even with the in-car cameras. And you can find countless videos where someone's being obstinate, difficult, and as soon as the officer says, hey, you're being recorded, you know, it changes their behavior. So, any questions? Yes, ma'am.
You're talking about the terabytes and terabytes of video. Are they stored on the computer, or are they just stored? Is it on the computer? Or?
It would be a server, ultimately, would happen. So it's I believe what we're looking at is something that would connect wirelessly with the network server, and then it would be stored on that server, and certain people would have access to that, and it would be stored. I don't know whether...
Hackers and stuff, is that something they can hack into if they wanted to?
the way we keep these servers is an internal network. And so the servers, like we have for the police reports, aren't connected to the internet generally. And so there's a lot of protections that they look at for that to try to protect people's personal information and the videos and stuff. So.
But just what you're saying about the kids and stuff, and they think a hacker, they think a pedophiles, and then.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's
for them to get videos of.
Right. And that's something that, again, goes into the limitations. Now I got to get someone that's savvy on networking and keeping out network intrusions and all that information. So, I mean, it's just, it kind of snowballs. It's not a matter of just getting a camera, then throwing a videotape or something on the shelf or, storing it to the cloud. There's a whole lot of other considerations. Yes, ma'am?
And another thing too, Jeremy, I don't think people think how much it's going to cost to store. It's going to cost way more money than it's ever going to cost to buy the camera. So it's a long-going thing.
Right.
And it's very expensive. And it depends how long you want to store everything. So, most of this, you could take 3 weeks. 3 weeks, you're talking years.
Years. Right.
Years.
And again, like I said, especially something like a homicide investigation, that could be indefinitely.
Right.
And we ran into the same issue, I believe, when we implemented the car cameras. Once it went to a network basis at a videotape, we ran out of storage rather quickly. I don't think we fully anticipated it, and so we had to accommodate that. And, yeah, so.
Well, just a couple of years ago, they were talking about terabytes. We're like, oh my God, terabytes.
Terabytes, nothing.
We'll never go through a terabyte. Well, let's take a year.
Yeah. I mean, you can go to Walmart now and buy a terabyte. I mean, I've got a terabyte or 2 terabyte drive at home, and I got a half full already, and I don't think I'm storing that much stuff. Just kids and grandkids and family vacations, And you can imagine if 125 officers are reporting something every day.
One of the things we're concerned about is you don't have to be a hacker. You just come in and drop a free open records request. And, it's whoever gets it, and then they can post it wherever they want to post it. They can put it on YouTube, they can put it on whatever, and Iowa Open Records Law leaves very little that you can hold back. And basically, you would have to go to court on a regular basis to get videos, to get the court to tell you what's not to release the video.
That's when you said also then,
Well, if you're going to release them, it's cost, the labor cost of pulling them up in the video, the activity, and then potentially have to go to court to get that order. And it could just be somebody that doesn't like it, that heard that the police was at their house, and they can make a request for the record. And under Iowa law right now, with the request to make
Yes, sir, you had a question?
Were both those videos you showed taken at night?
Yes. Yeah, Officer Simone, one of the officers that's been testing the cameras, the different cameras that we've been looking at implementing, and he works with the ASAP unit, the drunk driver unit, and so his hours are 9 p.m. to 5 a.m., and a lot of what he does is dark.
I guess what I'm getting at is, and I realize that I'm talking about a month when I say this, but the quality I didn't think was that good.
Well, if you got it on a computer screen, it's a little bit better. This projector, because I'm looking at this, I was looking at it here and I was looking at here, because when I put the video together, the presentation together, the video is a lot better quality, but then I realized this projector's not keeping up with the quality of video. But if you looked it up on the screen, you'd see that it's a lot better quality. If you go to YouTube tonight and just type in police body cameras or wherever, you can pull up a lot of footage and see varying qualities of footage of different police body cameras that different agencies use. So, but yeah, I mean, but something like that too. If I go into court and I'm trying to project it big, well, I don't see what you're talking about. This officer's full of hooey when he's talking about eye twitches and talking about your mojo.
So there is some value to it.
Right. Yeah, I guess my concern is it needs a little bit, some.
Right.
These are all issues that we've got to deal with. There's no two ways about it.
That's right.
Would each officer have their own camera, or would you treat it as a
I believe the plan now is that the officers would have their own camera. So, and again, that increases cost, but, I mean, I take care of my equipment, because I hate being without or using it something else, but you're dealing with stuff that has to be recharged. And so if I use it for 8 hours and I stick it in a cradle, the next officer grabs it and runs it out, it's not going to get recharged in time. And so, you know, there's issues like that. And then in addition to that, they can timestamp my name and stuff like that on it. So.
Jeremy,
Yes, ma'am.
are the police officers support to wear a camera?
Do they support wearing the camera? I know personally I do, just for the very reason I think that nationally, with everything that's gone on, there has been some erosion of public trust, and some people question what we do, and I don't think our word stands as strong as it used to. Now, I think locally, our department, if you go back and look at everything that we've done and the efforts that we make to be open and to be just and fair, I think that we're leaps and bounds above other agencies that have had issues. But I'm for it just for the simple fact that it's going to show that, yeah, we are doing what we're supposed to be doing, and that we are an agency that you can trust, and that, you know, we've implemented good training, and we try to take care of our officers and make sure that we treat the people that we deal with dignity and respect, whether they're a victim or a suspect. So.
And my last question, how much we talking about we buy the 125 cameras?
That's above my pay grade at this point.
It'll be above mine too. We'll probably end up with 90 cameras, or yeah, 90 cameras, one for each officer, and we'll have a couple extra in case one gets down. And then on top of that, that's just buying the equipment, which is not that bad. We can buy the equipment. Like we said, the storage will be the killer here, because you're probably looking at. Initially, I'm just going to throw this out. I think Woodbury County, who has cameras, was $10,000 a year for storage, and they had a 3-year contract, and now they've got another contract, and it's increased, obviously, but I don't know the exact amount. So,
That's way less officers too.
Yeah.
That's just storage.
That's just,
Yeah.
and that's just
That's
storage.
storage.
Really, in the business model that we're looking at, the money's in the storage. So if you want to get rich quick, I'd figure out how to make, store video.
Well, we have like 20 sheriff's deputies, so at minimum triple that for storage.
Yes.
Is there any effort at the state level to change the law so you don't have to deal with some of the stuff with Freedom of Information Act request? Because obviously that needs to catch up to technology.
Right, and unfortunately, state law is slow to catch up to a lot of technological issues.
Right.
Just in like investigating sexual exploitation of children online, I know state law is tough or slow to catch up with some of the technology that's out there now. But I know it is something that they are addressing, and our union reps advocate a lot for not only us but the public as well. Believe it or not, because your concerns are our concerns too. I don't want somebody getting a hold of the evidence, or the recording that I had with you when you're talking about your child being sexually abused, or whatever the issue is. There needs to be some protections there, and I know obviously they're looking at that too. Yes, sir.
There was a piece of legislation that was proposed this year that was very concerning to us because of some of the things that were written into it, and it didn't make it through the funnel. So right now, there's no pending legislation.
The legislation would have made it easier for them to get the material not ready.
Hey, Rick, we're still texting and driving in Iowa. What's that tell you?
What type of storage unit are you talking about? Are you talking about the little chips? Or are you talking
No,
about...
the camera would maybe have an internal storage too. So like when you buy your cell phone, like I went out and I got an Apple iPhone, and so I got I went all out and I got the 120 gig or whatever it is. I got the biggest I got. So essentially, a lot of the units will have an internal storage as well. They know roughly, in an 8-hour shift, if you record the whole 8-hour shift, this would record 12 gigabytes, or take 12 gigabytes. Like our in-car cameras, I think have a 7 gigabyte internal storage. So, and I'm probably losing a lot of people talking about gigs and everything else, but, the in-car cameras can store this much. And so, you're talking about, if I'm recording this much through a shift, how long will it take me to fill up these shelves? If all these shelves are a terabyte, how long would it take me to fill up all these shelves with this much information. So it's the best way I can explain it if you're not real computer savvy, and over the last couple of years getting into all this stuff, I've had to get computer savvy too, so it's been a huge learning curve, but yeah, it's just, you're talking digital space essentially.
It's enormous.
So,
Yes, sir.
Is this a voluntary program? And if so, what's the percentage of the people our size that have it, you know? Is it like...
I don't know the percentage nationally of agencies our size that have it. Like you mentioned, Woodbury County, which is a little bit smaller agency than us, has it. Bigger departments implement it. You know, right now it's a voluntary deal. We're not mandated by, and that was part of the legislation too, was to mandate that everybody has it. And so some of the concern was, well, how's Mobile PD going to afford it, you know, and if they're forced to have it. And so, but right now it's a voluntary deal.
Right, Iowa City has it. Des Moines has some, because they've got a very large police force, so they do have some there, and there's a lot of smaller agencies that have it. Sergeant Bluff's got it, but they got a different, they're storing their own on their own computer.
On criminals that make crimes, is it possible that you can add a little bit more fine to their bail and stuff, and then use that to
It's possible
take a
that the
little bit out,
legislature could do
and
that.
you could buy
But
2, 3 cameras maybe.
yeah, but some of the criminals we're talking about too, you can't, you know, there's the old things where you can't make a turnip lead. So, I mean, it's possible that the state could increase court costs.
Go after their parents then.
Right?
Go after their parents.
So, yeah, there's a lot of different potential considerations, and again, a lot of it's above my pay grade too, so I'd be more than happy to smack a camera on. I know just with the in-car camera, I turn that on quite a bit when I have contact with people. And again, just because it's that impartial witness, and somebody can't make a false allegation against me, I can't misrepresent what they said, or, you know, I don't have to remember every minute detail of what they've said, so they're handy. Just to keep things rolling, I'll get out of the way here, so that way I don't have too much more time, and I appreciate your attention.
Okay, I get an opportunity to talk with the officers at the table. Again, these questionnaires will put your contact information if you have any complaints or concerns that you would like dealt with in your neighborhoods. Put that on here. Just make sure you put your contact, at least a telephone number, so the officer can call you back to follow up on whatever you're doing.